Okay. Great. Hello, everybody. This is our February meeting of the West County Concilio Latino. And the Concilio Latino is a network for individuals and organizations working with the Latino community in West Contra Costa County. It meets monthly to identify the needs and share resource information and advocate for gaps and services in the Latino community at the local, state, and federal levels, and specifically address the needs of the monolingual Spanish-speaking community. Concilio Latino partners with coalitions of diverse and civil human rights, civil and human rights organizations to advocate and participate in activities, events, and movements towards social justice for all underserved and underrepresented and targeted communities. So we recognize that we are presently in the lands of the Muwekma Ohlone peoples, and we acknowledge them as the first inhabitants of the land we currently occupy. And today is February 18th, and we are starting our meeting here with some introductions. So let's go around and introduce ourselves. And my name is Consuelo Lara, and I'm facilitator for the Concilio. And let's see. Oh, I'm also on the Contra Costa County Board of Education. Thank you. And Madeline, why don't you start?
I'm Madeline Cronenberg, and I'm here representing the League of Women Voters of West Contra Costa County.
Okay, Kristen.
Hi, I'm Kristen Persley. I'm with the West Contra Costa Adult Education in the ESL department.
Thank you. Valeska.
Morning, everyone. My name is Valeska Castañeda. I am the Activation Outreach Coordinator at Richmond Land.
Thank you. Guadalupe.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Guadalupe Llana, and I am a community member.
Thank you. And let me see. Yenny Garcia.
Buenos dias. Good morning. My name is Yenny Garcia. I'm the Executive Director Assistant at the Latina Center. Happy to be here.
Thank you. And let's see, who am I? Oh, Richmond Land, it says.
Sorry, everyone. I'll rename myself. Good morning. Buenos dias. My name is Dulce Galicia. I'm the placemaking director at Richmond Land. Good to be here.
Thank you. And Magdalena.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Magdalena. I'm a district rep with Congressman Mark Desonier.
Thank you so much. Luisa.
Hello, good morning. My name is Luisa Escobar. I'm the ELD school community worker at the West Contra Costa Unified.
Thank you. And Francisco.
Good morning, everybody. Francisco Ortiz, Vice President and Community Schools Organizer for United Teachers of Richmond. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jaime, you got back just in time to introduce yourself.
My name is Jaime Catter, and I do part-time interpretation in the schools, and I'm a member of ACE. And I also work part-time for a foster care agency in Contra Costa County.
Okay, very good. All right, so those are our introductions, and we'll get started with our first guest speaker, Dulce. And Dulce, I'll let you introduce yourself and your topic, and we have two speakers on this topic as well. Community Land Trust in West County for long-term affordability. And thank you for coming. Thank all of you for coming. And Dulce, you can begin.
Thank you, Consuelo. I'll let my colleague introduce our topic for today, and then we'll take any questions afterwards, but kick it off, Valeska.
Yes, okay, I have sharing access. Give me 1 second. So good morning, everyone, and then if folk are still arriving. Again, I'm going to start by introducing myself. My name is Valeska Castañeda. I am the Activation Outreach Coordinator at Richmond Land. I'm going to be providing you all with a presentation about what a community land trust means. Luce is on the line as well, and she is our placemaking director. So before we start the presentation, let's do a pop quiz. And you might know the answers and you might not, and that's okay. So who knows what the acronym CLT stands for? Anyone? And even if you don't know, that's okay. You can put it in the chat box, your guesses. I'm going to be going through it later. Who knows how long a CLT can secure land once it purchases it? And who can tell me how many years a traditional affordable housing can make rents affordable for tenants before they can decide what to do with the land? Now, maybe all the other questions you didn't know the answers, but I do know at least the first one, what the acronym. I'm looking at the chat box. Folk were able to get that one right. So without further ado, let's go into the presentation. And yes, the acronym does stand for Community Land Trust. So what is a community land trust? We are a nonprofit organization that is community driven and whose sole mission it is to provide affordable housing by taking back the land, so that community has move power and leverage over what gets built there. But how is that different from all the other forms of housing? So when you think of the word affordable housing, what do you think of? In Richmond, some affordable housing spaces have been places like Pullman Point, Crescent Park, for those of us who have been here for decades and remember Easter Hill. So according to the City of Richmond's 2020 Affordable Housing Strategy, it defines affordable housing by the federal government, which should not exceed over 30% of a household income. Even with these guidelines, during the pandemic in 2020, Richmond saw the highest vacancies. And as of March 2021, Contra Costa County renters owed an estimate of $60 million in rent, and that debt was not distributed equally. Nearly 9 in 10 of those in debt were people of color, and 94% earned less than $75,000. So why is CLT? Let's take McDonald's as an example, even if they're not a real estate company. When McDonald's, the company, comes into Richmond and looks for property, it acquires it for their own interest to generate income off of the land. The same can be said for real estate companies. Whereas a CLT, the goal of a CLT is to take land out of the market that doesn't allow people to pay for affordable housing. So essentially, we're land protectors. And that comes from the origins. The origins of the CLT grew out of the Black farmers movement, when Black farmers who were having issues reclaiming land organized to form the CLT model. The origins of affordable housing puts community ownership at the forefront, with community leading the vision of how the surrounding community that their families grow will continue to develop. But how does that work exactly? So the CLT acquires and retains land, removing it from the real estate and putting it back in community hands. But what does taking it from real estate's hand and putting it in community hands mean? So again, what is the goal of real estate companies? To purchase land to make money off of community. A CLT purchases land to make sure that the house that was built on that land stays in community, so that rent isn't raised, so that it isn't sold off later to be turned into private housing or re-rented for 3 times what a family in our community can afford. It purchases land so that community can decide what to do with it. Other important parts of the ownership is community land trust owned land becomes affordable for 99 years, whereas affordable housing is limited, can be limited to up to 20 years. With community land trust land, the lease then becomes inherited. If the property is sold, it's done so at a pre-calculated lower rate to the next family. The other important aspect of how it works is community. The CLT is moved by the community. The community decides properties and development to do. The CLT is also moved by the community board, which is made up of 1/3 community stakeholders, people that live in the actual community, 1/3 residents, and 1/3 expertise stakeholders specialized in CLT. So, for the community part, what does that mean? Again, companies like McDonald's or a real estate company work to make profit for its investors, whereas the CLT is held in community hands instead of corporate hands. And community who are involved and our members have a say and move how the CLT model is. So if you see how a CLT is made, it is 100% owned by you, the community who decides to become involved. So what's next? Is us making this vision a reality alongside you by you all involving yourself with Richmond Land. There are so many different tangible ways, resharing our social media posts, jumping on campaigns with us, attending workshops that we host, coming out to socials, asking questions, spreading the word, or inviting us, just like here, into other spaces for us to continue to raise awareness. And of course, becoming a member so that we can create collective power together to take back our land. I'm gonna thank you all for having us, and I'm gonna leave you with a short video right now for us to watch of just a little bit of the endless possibilities of what we can create together. If you all have any questions, we're gonna do a Q&A after, and I'm also gonna leave my contact information in the box.
Growing up in this area, we're instinctually just kind of raised to survive. It's really empowering to know that we can create systems to help us out and not just take from us. The fellowship really gave us a structure to be able to solidify our ideas of what we wanted to see in the community and also make it so that it can actually happen.
The Building Power Fellowship is Richmond Land's way of engaging residents in Richmond to kind of let them be a part of the decision-making processes that they're usually excluded from that affect their communities and families. The fellows learn how to engage in community development with people that actually work in development. We find fellows through established nonprofit organizations that are in Richmond. So these people are already engaged in activism at the grassroots level. And it's just about taking it a step further.
You know how when you ask somebody like, well, how do I open up a business? And they tell you, oh, well, it's hard. It's very hard. They don't give you like the specifics. That's what the fellowship really helped me gain, like real steps, existing places that are there for you to go to and just ask.
We're trying to bring solutions to this housing crisis. And what we came up with, and me and Franz designed this project to revitalize these vacant lots and turn them into tiny home eco villages.
The way the project started, we just kind of dreamt.
Starting somewhere small, like what we doing right now, like what is our job? Well, I work on a farm and I work at a garden. I help people with food, so I'm thinking about food. But then personally, right, I'm going through like, okay, well, I'm trying to find housing. And then that idea grows. Yeah, I work on a farm, but can we put like a house on there? And then how do we make this house affordable? Like, can it be a tiny home? Maybe for a young adult who's just trying to make it, right? Or start somewhere. And then when you work in cooperatively or in a group, you soon find out you're not the only one going through something like that. And so now I'm not just trying to find housing for myself. I'm trying to find housing for a group of people.
The Bay Area has so many people that are doing such great things, and it's unfortunate that people have to leave because they can't afford to live here. We wanted to provide resources for folks that allows them to feel like they have a future here.
We wanted to engage people into this idea that we and Fonz had. So we hosted this workshop with Urban Till staff, employees, collected a lot of data, collected a lot of feedback on what they felt the project needed. They wrote stories about what it would be like to be in a tiny home.
Another thing that we had fun with was the Barrel Oven Build Day. When we have that community, we have the people that are driven, that see what you're doing, and they just automatically just get up and start moving with you. That's like super powerful.
It's like so much land out here. Why can't we make all of these tiny little vacant lots into like little community hubs or little places where people have support to kind of grow? Just starting somewhere. Let's start somewhere, because I didn't get to start anywhere.
We're trying to get sites that we can actually start building on, and that's making everything into reality now.
We're working with county representatives, private owners, community residents, HUD, housing authority. Everybody has different perspective, but that's why we all need to be working together on things like this.
This whole fellowship was like life-changing for me because it opened my eyes to things that I'd never seen before. It's about advocacy. It's about like stepping up. When people listen and they're asking the questions that someone that's interested would, it makes you feel like you matter. When you grow up in an area that doesn't really make you feel like that, it's a bit of assurance, but it's also like reality. You're making the strides, you're making the right moves, and when you're at the right place at the right time, you can make a big difference.
There's so many people that are very powerful in our community. I just really see the tiny home eco village as being something very viable. I don't think it's a dream. You know, I think it's really something that could be reality.
Right, I know this is not going to happen overnight. It's definitely going to be carried on through the next, set of fellows that come through. And one day I'm going to be riding past, that little tiny home eco village, and I'll be able to say, look at that, I did that, I was a part of that, So, and I think that's what it's all about.
Other thing I'm going to leave you all with while we go into the questions and answers is also how to stay connected with us through our different social media platforms. So I'm pretty sure you all have a lot of interesting questions after seeing the presentation and also seeing what some of our fellows were able to create through the concept of the tiny homes. So I'm gonna open up the floor for just any questions that you all have and for Lisa to be able to support and answer.
Great. Thank you so much. Oh, this is so wonderful. I'm so excited. Okay, who has some questions about this? And I want to say right now is to thank Genoveva Calloway. She recommended that you come and speak to us, and I am so glad we had this opportunity. Okay, you can either raise your hand or just chime right in. Let's see, put your little hand up or your real hand up, or just start asking questions if you like. Okay, oh, Yenny, that was a hand clap. Francisco.
Thank you. Thank you, Valeska, and thank you, Luther, both of you for the incredible work that you're doing with Richmond Land. I just thought it was really, really powerful and moving. The focus and the community-driven aspect of this initiative. And I remember earlier there was another a slide that said that there was a way that we could get involved in terms of membership. And so I just wanted to ask more about how we could support the organization and yeah, as the individual members or as an organization, how we could support.
Thank you, Francisco, for that question. And Valeska for your powerful presentation. So this is our first year that we kicked off our membership. And so we have a good number of members. If you individually want to be a member, we suggest anywhere from $2 to $22, and that's on an annual basis. The funds, the $22 goes towards community acquisitions. So you saw in the video, the Building Power Fellowship Program, and that program is essentially taking community members and saying, what are the housing development projects that you want to see, and let's make them happen. So $22 is not a lot. but collectively, it allows us to grow our development capacity in terms of acquiring property. It also allows you to be a part of our general meetings and our annual membership meetings where we vote on the board, where we vote on development projects. And the idea behind the Community Land Trust is that the community are the members who are paying the dues, but that doesn't mean we leave anyone behind. We're often thinking about how do we make housing affordable throughout Contra Costa County. So one way is that individually, if you want, you can go to our website, richmondland.org, and commit any funds really that you can. And then the other way is we're often looking for places to do presentations and to involve community. The number one thing we hear from community members is, this is great. I wish I would have known about this. How can I get involved? Most people think of housing as a traditional 30-year mortgage. But we also, through the Community Land Trust model, we allow for a pipeline towards home ownership in a different way. And so we often do those presentations to prepare people to become ready for that process. And so, yeah, those are the biggest ways. So any way that you all can connect us to any of your members, and even follow us on social media, we have monthly programming that we do.
Great, thank you. I don't see, any other thing else? I just want to say, I'm just so excited about this, that we are recording this, and so you could use it in other areas, and all of us could, share it with our friends and people that we know that might be interested in this. And I'm hoping that, you will use this, the Concilio, it's really a networking group. If you come and share each month would be great, because different people come and participate. One of the questions that I have is about your partnerships with the schools or school districts or the school district. How is that working?
Yes, that is a great question. We actually got approached early on by, I believe it was Richmond College Prep. And I think that's something that we can think about in the future. Really, our work is guided by our membership. And so we do a whole community-led process, visioning sessions, where we narrow in on the topics and who we want to partner with and what that looks like. And so this year, it's really on single family home acquisitions, so that we take those homes out of the speculative market and corporations don't purchase them, so families can continue to live in them. But we do see a future where members are saying, hey, can we do teacher housing? Can we do parent teacher housing? Our tiny home eco village, we hope that it is next to Verde Elementary School. And so there's a lot of people thinking about, can I live there as a parent? Can I live there as a teacher? And so I think that process is going to be a really beautiful one once we have that visioning session for the tiny home eco village. We work very closely with architects and engineers so that the development projects that the community is envisioning are also realistic. But again, the priorities are set by the membership.
I see. Okay, very good. All right. I have more questions, but let's see. Jaime, why don't you go ahead and go?
Yes, you spoke about Richmond, but are you also reaching out to other communities, for example, Antioch or Concord?
Yeah, great question. We're in communication with Concord. Our geographic region is West Contra Costa County and unincorporated North Richmond. We don't have the capacity to spearhead another CLT, but we do provide our thinking support to Concord. We've been in conversations with the different board of supervisors around their thoughts around the community land trust. And actually in the housing element in the general plan, we are pushing for the board of supervisors, the Contra Costa Department of Conservation and Development, to include community land trust as a feasible alternative for housing throughout the county, not just West County, excuse me.
Great. Okay, oh, Madeline, yes.
I am so impressed by what you're doing. I am just, it's very exciting. So I have 2 questions. The first one is about Measure X, right? So are you involved? Are you partnering or part of the partnerships that are happening in Measure X, which for anyone who doesn't know is the county, the new county sales tax? I'm hoping you are, yes?
Great question, Madeline. Yes, we are involved in Measure X, and they're doing a carve out for affordable housing. And so we're hoping that the community land trust model receives funding, not just for Richmond land, but also so that a community land trust can be replicated throughout the county, which goes to Jaime's question. So yes, we're involved in that.
That's very exciting because that really would expand it, and it would also give you a really deep partnership with the community, right? And the second one, and I just want to call out Francisco on this too. This is my school district passed. The school district is doing something called a 7-Eleven committee. There are 4 pieces of property that they're looking at right now, all of which are available for redevelopment. And before they get sold to a developer, I think that this is a real important conversation to have with you. And that's the old Seaview, the Adams site, the Portola site, and a site called Knowles in up near Hilltop. And those 4 sites, all of them could be used, or at least, anyway, that's a conversation that I suggest that you have with the school board and Dr. Hurst. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Yes, that would definitely be an excellent conversation, Madeline. I believe Valeska shared her contact information, but for anyone else, I'm willing to share my contact information as well. We're actually in conversation also with the county around their surplus land act, any available land in order to build on. That includes affordable housing development, as well as school properties. And so the county has also identified some properties that are former school sites. So I think that's a great way to lead into a conversation, Madeline.
Well, West Contra Costa hasn't had school properties available in like 25 years, just so you know. This doesn't come up that often. So this is really a window here right now before the developers get there, which will happen. I'm sure they're watching. So just so you know. Yeah. But I'm happy to, anybody who wants to contact me about it, I'd be happy to partner with you or Francisco. I really think it could be a UTR, very much a UTR thing, right? Around workforce housing with the Teamsters. That's it.
Oh, okay, if we were meeting in person, we'd pass around a clipboard to collect everybody's name and their email address. So could you please all leave your information into the chat, just your email and what you, your area that you're representing. And then any other things about the Richmond land, ways that we can get, if people here want that, invite you to come and present. So you have all your contact information in the chat for them. And what else was I going to say? I'm just really happy about the Urban Tilth partnership also, because I'm a retired teacher and I was on the school board. I always thought that our school gardens really needed to be utilized more, and especially when the pandemic started, how that could help their communities with food. Okay, and let me see, any other questions? I'm just so glad you came. Any other questions or comments anybody wants to make, or suggestions? We really want to support this any way that we can. Please come and keep us updated about what's going on. And let me see. Oh, Madeline, your hand is up again?
Oh, it's still up. I didn't take
it. Still up. Okay. Anybody else?
Thank you for inviting us, Consuelo, and we're always willing to take questions. And we've left our contact information in the chat.
Okay, that's great. That's great so much. Okay. Wow, we are very good here on time.
I would like to add, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Consuelo, but I'd like to add, Dulce, that if you need assistance from our office, please feel free to reach out. We do have liaisons with HUD, as well as, if you need an appointment with the congressman. Generally, we're here to assist you with any federal agencies. So if you come across any roadblocks or need assistance, you can reach out to me. I left my phone number and contact information here in the chat.
That is excellent. Thank you so much, Magdalena. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, Magdalena. And I just have to do a shout out to Mark Desanye and his office. I've been doing this like 4 years, and there was always somebody here representing that office, probably going back even before that. So thank you, both of you, all of you, for being here. All right, are we ready to transition to our next speaker? Looks like. All right, and thank you again, and please come back often. Let me see. So now it's time for our next speaker, Ben Terrio, and he's a candidate for Contra Costa County Sheriff. And thank you for being here. And I just want to say one thing, that the Concilio Latino is like kind of like the League of Women Voters. We don't endorse any candidates. However, we do support issues in the community, and we give voice, and we allow people to come. Sometimes they get invited, sometimes they seek it. So just an area to network and and give voice to as many people as we can. So with that, I'll have Ben introduce himself and give us his his little presentation. Thank you.
I understand. Thank you very much, Consuelo. And thank you everyone here in Concilio Latino. I appreciate the time and opportunity. My name is Ben Terrio. I'm a Native American man. I'm a registered Democrat and a Richmond police officer. I grew up out of state in Western Montana on the Flathead Indian Reservation. As a boy, I learned about facilitating communication and engagement to everyone by watching my father, who was our tribal chairman, engage in community empowerment through his office. And it was my experience as a young man that with our own tribal police that led me to want to be a police officer. And I've pursued that engagement and our honorable profession my entire life. I joined the United States Air Force as a military policeman at age 17, and I served for 6 years and am a combat veteran of the Iraq War. After my honorable discharge, I joined the Richmond Police Department, where I became part of an amazing team of officers within a department that was run by, at the time, former Chief Magnus, who hired me, and now is President Biden's head of Customs and Border Patrol, and also was very instrumental in a lot of the changes around ensuring that there was no immigration and customs enforcement at the local level here in Richmond. RPD also became nationally recognized by the Obama administration during his tenure as the model for 21st century community policing. And I'm currently in my 14th year here at RPD and have worked a variety of specialty assignments, including 2 separate assignments as a vice detective and as a gang detective. I have vast experience in labor relations, human resources, and law enforcement, police and procedures and policies. And I serve on 3 nonprofit boards that focus on healthy youth lives and ensure that people and young people basically stay away from pathways of incarceration. I'm running for sheriff because the office to me is devoid of leadership. We have made and continue to make smart reforms within law enforcement in recent years, but our sheriff, our elected law enforcement leader in the county, has been absent from these conversations. This to me has to change. One of the main issues that I think we can make headway and progress on is in mental and behavioral health. Everyone on this call, myself included, all of us have some type of connection to issues around mental and behavioral health. It affects everybody. And so while I don't believe we can completely divorce law enforcement and the role of the police from all crisis calls, but I maybe some certain types of crisis calls we might not be able to completely separate from, the vast majority of these issues on people are having mental and behavioral health crisis, police officers should have a reduced role. And this is especially true when there isn't any criminal or safety matter that the officers can address. There are other people who are better to respond to that. I responded to countless mental health calls and suicide interventions as an officer myself, and I benefited from working with programs like CORE, Homeless Outreach, to refer people experiencing homelessness to housing before police intervention. I've also seen the benefits of the MET team, which is our mental health evaluation team, where officers and clinicians work in tandem on mental health calls. The county has launched a new program response for mental health. It's called the A3 response, which is an anyone, anywhere, anytime service, which will coordinate with law enforcement to provide appropriate mental health responses to those in crisis and bring us in only when needed. The goal of this effort is to fully staff crisis response to be 24 hours at the county level, coordinating with law enforcement and 911 communications dispatch. I think this could vastly improve our current system, which has a lot of gaps. We need reliable and balanced approaches with clear coordinated roles between police and crisis response to address these issues. And from the way money comes from the state down through the counties, it's a far more feasible way to deal with the issues that need to be dealt, obviously with levels of cultural competence and an understanding of all the different cities and people's wants and needs. But quite frankly, our cities, are not equipped monetarily to handle these big issues on our own. Currently, also, I think there are a lot of there's a lot of gaps and staffing and issues within the sheriff's office, specifically to unincorporated areas within the county. And most of the sheriff's deputies within the sheriff's office either work in the jails or in court security. And most are not actually certified to work outside in the community on patrol. This has led to major service disruptions and slow response to 911 calls. There's quite simply just not enough deputies on the street to keep you safe. And most deputies who are certified to work patrol throughout the county, they're the less than third of the actual department or the office works a mandatory 50 hours of overtime a month. And quite frankly, that's just not sustainable. And it's not a quality management of resources and for the services that people in the county are paying for, whether they live in cities or in unincorporated areas. Too many to me have complained throughout our county that the patrol services have not been adequate. Public safety is the number one priority of the sheriff's office, and crime is on the rise throughout the county. And the current sheriff has just quite frankly offered no new solutions to this problem. It's not a deputy problem. This is a management of this office problem. So what I propose is a sheriff to use pay incentives to push current deputies to be certified for patrol. All of our municipal police officers, whether in San Pablo, Hercules, Pinole, Richmond, all have to be certified to work patrol. I want to increase that through the sheriff's office and increasing service in our contract cities and unincorporated patrol areas by offering incentives to get people to come out of the jails and court security. And then I will require all newly hired deputies to be patrol trained and certified, just like our municipal police officers. And if they can't pass that aspect of law enforcement, they won't work for the sheriff's office. As far as leadership, that's one of the main reasons I'm running for sheriff, is just the lack thereof. And as your next sheriff, I welcome the voices of people who live and work in this county, to the table for all issues. The current sheriff claims to support community policing, but he's time after time made himself inaccessible to the community at large in the county, and then specific communities within, especially out here in West County, where he's practically never seen. And quite frankly, in Central and East counties, rarely seen either. That's a big issue, and not being accessible to the community, and comparably speaking to other public officials, and not being up on issues like accountability, the gifting of crime gun parts recently to volunteers, not having high-end diversity in hiring and diversity in thought. We've had safety in our issues over the safety of our jails. And like I said, the policing services in unincorporated areas, which are generally lower income areas, and where mostly people of color live. Under my administration, community policing and public safety will be a top focus. And like I said, I'll reconfigure patrol to provide the community with the services they've lacked for too long. I want to prioritize providing appropriate mental health response, as I talked about, that allows cops to do their jobs and reduce their roles in social and medical issues that need to be handled by different folks in different ways. We need to take a back seat to that. I will ensure that our county will lead with strategies that are efficient, inclusive, responsive, and innovative. And if things don't work, we'll come out and say, hey, we tried this and it didn't work. But we need to try new ideas and take a step in that direction, and not just keep doing the same thing over and over again. I will open my office to connect with facets of our community that have been left out of the conversation and increase diversity in hiring. I'll support safety and training and needs of our sworn and civilian staff, ensure that all the training goals for the agency are actually completed and that they're actually advanced and beyond the standards that are required by the state. I want to implement a CCW process that is fair and equitable rather than just an elite privilege for those close to the power. And I've been fortunate enough to have diverse and unique leadership opportunities throughout my career, and I want to bring those experiences to the sheriff's office. Like I said earlier, I've served my country. I've worked as a police officer for 14 years in a very good police department. It's not a perfect police department, but it's done very well and been notified and been recognized nationally. I've had the privilege of being a labor leader and serving in numerous leadership capacities, both local and statewide, that address law enforcement policy issues and reform. And, some have brought up, well, how can, just a police officer serve in this capacity? And my response to that would be, a better question is, why not? Who knows better how to do this job that has evolved so much over the past 12 years than those who actually do it? I don't think we should dismiss the men and women who do this work every day in, day out, and the changing climate of law enforcement who deserve to be heard. Many of us have wanted to see lots of changes at the lower level and have just not been able to break through. And then also, there's many people in our community whose voices we cannot dismiss, looking for us to have change in leadership. This is something we can do. We can vote. Up until now, the sheriff has run unopposed. There was no need to discuss changes before because there's never been any other choice. And I believe we can see positive change in our community that unites us in spirit of service by finding common sense and common ground solutions to law enforcement within our county. And service-based leadership, to me, is to become a local and statewide labor leader within law enforcement. And that's what I want to become with the sheriff, to take that and make those changes as a reform leader as well. That's what drives me to put on my uniform and serve this my city as a police officer. And that's what I want to take with me to serve as the sheriff. These are the lessons I learned from my mother and father. It's what I'm teaching my daughter, and that's what I hope to bring as leadership to the sheriff's office. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for sharing your perspective and your goals. That was very enlightening for us to hear. Okay, we have questions. Jaime, go ahead.
Hello, I'm an ACE member, the Alliance of Californians for Community Empowerment. And I'd like to know if our organization has sent you any type of communication asking for you to be interviewed by us so that we would see if we would endorse your campaign. And my other question is, I understand that the present sheriff has wanted to get monies from the Measure X, is what my understanding is. I mean, are you going to do something similar? I don't think this is a positive thing, but yeah.
No, great questions. First, to answer your question, no, actually ACE has not sent me anything. And I didn't know that was actually something that I guess an organization that I could reach out to. But quite frankly, it's definitely an issue, especially around housing. The sheriff's office obviously enforces issues around landlord-tenant issues, et cetera. And obviously there's a lot of issues that's come from the pandemic. And I think it's very important. A couple of other surveys that I've answered have touched upon that, whether I will ensure that, landlords follow the law, et cetera. And obviously, I will. So I'd be more than happy to fill out a survey or come before your group as well. And then, how we handle the response after the pandemic for issues that come from tenants' rights, et cetera. I mean, it's very important. It's very important that we have a humanistic approach, so it's not just a black and white approach to these issues. And then the Measure X money, the sheriff did come and ask for Measure X money. I think they used some of it for body cameras and other things, but quite frankly, that could have been done within the budget for years back. It was only actually, quite frankly, in my opinion, only after I started this campaign and started talking about body cameras did they finally get off their rear and actually go out and purchase them and start the process, which will take probably a couple of years to implement. It's, would I seek any more future Major X money? I don't want to. And the reason why is that I don't think that's what the community really wanted. So that's not my intent. And what I would say additionally to that is, kind of talking about changing the interior process of the sheriff's office. I think it can be pretty cost prohibitive on just giving, which means just not spending a lot more money to change the makeup of the force and where people are being deployed. That could actually not cost as much money, and then not require the sheriff to go to the board of supervisors and ask for a lot of money to make that happen. Because I think most people in the community want the Major X money used for other things. I think that's been made pretty clear. And I think I need to respect that.
Great, very good. Thank you. Any other questions?
I have a question, more like a comment. I think for me, it's important that the Latino community understands why we should be worried about who our next sheriff is. I think the sheriff's role in massive incarceration rates and massive deportation, it's something that we need to talk about. And like the detainers, but not only that, like what else is the sheriff? What else is the sheriff in charge of? Like, he's also the coroner, and you also will get to decide whether something was a homicide or an accident. And like, those are important topics that I want you to bring to the Latino community, because I don't think that we know enough of, so that we make an informed decision when it comes time to vote for our next year.
And can I piggyback on what Jenny just said, or Yenny, I'm sorry. And also, under the present sheriff, some individuals died while they are incarcerated.
Yeah, no, safety in the jails is important. Look, when people are in, police custody and the government's custody, there are things that might happen. There are medical issues. Obviously, people do pass away. But what we need to do and make sure of, and there was a DOJ report done about safety specifically in jails in Contra Costa. And that we need to continue to highlight that, ensure that we're doing a good job, and that's not it doesn't fall by the wayside. That's important, because people shouldn't be passing away just because we have unsafe facilities. That's just not acceptable. As the sheriff coroner, that issue, I mean, I'm still that's an issue about should they be separated or not. I'm willing to look at that. Other places, other counties have done that successfully, and so I think that's something that needs to be looked into. And decided further down the line. But as far as immigration enforcement is concerned, like I said, I've been a Richmond police officer for years. We've adopted sanctuary policies for a long time, and that's the right thing to do. I have no intention other than within the law of participating or assisting ICE if for anything, because quite frankly, that's not our job. It's not our role, and it honestly affects our ability to do a good job within communities in the community of Contra Costa, because people it proliferates this fear of local law enforcement that we are somehow connected to that part of the federal government, and that we're going after people or people, if they come to the Martinez or jail for something, some low-level offense, they're going to be somehow swooped up. We need to work hard, and the sheriff's office needs to work hard as the county leader to ensure that people understand that that's not what local law enforcement wants, and that's not what we're a part of. That's not what we're doing, and that we have a sanctuary policy as well. But unfortunately, people have to be out there and talking about it, and I will. That's my commitment to you all. I mean, that's my belief personally here right now, and then my commitment to you in the future is to make sure that we're constantly working against that stigma, because I think there are a lot of things that happen in certain communities, especially immigrant communities, where people don't feel that they can trust law enforcement still, and after many years of trying to work on these issues, and so we have to continue to work on that, and that's very, very important to me. And it's important because we serve everyone within the county.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, we have a question from Dulce.
Thanks so much for your presentation and your platform. I'm wondering, what are some of the best practices for interpretation that sheriffs use specifically for monolingual speakers? And where do you see there's gaps, and how do you see that can be improved upon?
I think well, first of all, one of the things that we need to work on is ensuring that we have enough people within our force. And when I talk about diversity in hiring and diversity in thought and background, that people who have language skills that we're able to cover at a good percentage, all parts of the county, so that people feel that if there's not a barrier to talking or addressing crime because of language. So that's important to highlight. I think it's important to incentivize and increase the ability and the number of people who work within the sheriff's office who have multilingual lingual skills. So that's important to me. I think that's something we've done a really good job in Richmond, and not usually a problem for us, because nothing's worse than there are times where I felt really bad because we didn't, in the past, where we didn't have enough Spanish speakers, and I had to basically take someone's report via phone call and have through a translation line, and it's not the same, and it's not a good service. I mean, it gets the job done, and if we have to use it, we have to use it. But I can tell you, as a peace officer, when I have had to take people's reports, I mean, I don't want to talk. And nor does some victim, especially if something very serious or heinous, want to talk through an interpreter to talk to law enforcement. That's just a turn off to them. So I think we need to increase that. And then also within training and within the office, encourage people to go out and learn a new language. I have a list of many long things I want to do personally. Although I've learned a lot of Spanish, working in the streets of Richmond, one of my long-term goals is to actually get to a level of proficiency where I can be certified, by the court. So, I mean, those are things that we need to push, as leaders in law enforcement, say, hey, look, this is important, because this is where we're at. This is where our state's at. This is where our community's at. And it's important to know. I mean, although my daughter doesn't like it, she gets sent to Spanish every day, once a week as a building block, because that's where our state's at, and it's an important language to understand. It's one of 3 major languages in the Western Hemisphere. So we need to reflect that within the sheriff's office as well in law enforcement.
Thank you for that. And really quickly, my part B, sorry, Madeline, is what is the current protocol, and should they always, should officers always call an interpretation number?
So the current protocol for Richmond, and what I would take to the sheriff's office, is to use an in-person translator when available, or if they're working. And we try to have at least one person always on every shift, so that there's no gaps in that. There are times, maybe because of vacation, et cetera, where that doesn't happen, and then you're required to use the language line. But the protocol is to always use in person over the language line, and I think that's appropriate.
Thank you.
Great questions. Thank you, Dulce. Very good. Okay, next, Madeline.
Yes, thank you. And that was a great presentation you gave. I was really impressed. My question is, I'm not sure everybody realizes, when is the election?
June 7th. So it's a primary. My understanding, I mean, obviously, it just opened up for actually filling out the paperwork and all that, and it'll close March 11th. But it's a primary in June 7th. Much like any of the other countywide races, if it's only 2 people, which probably just something similar like the DA's race, et cetera, it's 50+1. So the way the primary system has been changed, any person who gets 50% plus 1 vote is the automatic winner. There's nothing. It doesn't go to November.
Well, that's if it doesn't matter what your which party you belong to, because it's nonpartisan. Is it nonpartisan?
Yes, it
That's
is.
the thing. But you're still able to get endorsements from political parties.
Correct.
All right, so that is the big thing. It's a very short window within which you need to get the support, right?
It is. I mean, I anticipate, just for full disclosure, my goal is to obtain the nomination from the Democratic Party, even though it is a nonpartisan race. I believe that will happen hopefully by the end of next month in March.
Right, and then so the real campaigning is really all going to happen in May, because that's and it's also it'll be mailed out. I mean, that's the other thing. It has to start in April because the ballots get mailed out in May.
April's the big month. It's very compacted. Yeah, the ballots, you're absolutely right, will get mailed out early May, and then we have the actual anyone left over who doesn't want to mail in can go in and drop it off or vote in person on June 7th.
Right, and it's generally because it's June, it's going to be a lower turnout.
Yes, so
right?
we're really hoping and trying to talk to everyone and hopefully galvanize people to go out and vote, because this is one of those down ballot things. Lots of people, Madeline, that I talk to, quite frankly, and unfortunately, don't know who the sheriff is, and then surely do not know what the sheriff does, which is it's very concerning, quite frankly.
Right. I mean, it's very, very true. So that you've got a real short window of time to educate people on all of that around the sheriff and that part of law enforcement, and the fact that the election is not in November, which is what everybody's thinking.
Yeah.
But the one that counts is actually in June. Right. So I just wanted to point that out to people, that this is not a far off election, because sometimes if we're talking to people now, often they're running for a race that's in November. But
yeah, no, thank you for highlighting that. Yes, that's very, very correct.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madeline. Good points. Okay, next is Cecilia.
Thank you. Hi, I know you talked about this a little bit already, but we know that California law limits law enforcement collaboration with ICE. And we also know that Sherry Livingston has been finding loopholes to collaborate with ICE and to inform them of release dates for certain inmates. So what is your stand on that? Is this something you're going to continue to do as well if you were to be elected? Like, what will your collaboration with ICE be, even though it's not supposed to be, it's supposed to be limited according to California law?
Yeah, I'll follow the law. I mean, I don't, the only type of collaboration I really would anticipate is if, obviously if a state judge or a federal judge issued a warrant for someone, or there was some type of federal detainer, again, from a judge, not just an agency, that's a different story. That would be that's a different circumstance, because that's the correct legal process, not just what has been done in the past, which is just a legal detainer by a bureaucratic agency, which is not, it's an administrative law, but it's not a criminal law. So if there was a federal warrant or state warrant issued by a judge, obviously by law I'm required to uphold that, and if that meant holding somebody in custody, then I obviously would. And then as far as the release dates, I think there's a lot of gray area on whether that's appropriate or not. So I would have, that's probably a more of a legal question that I'd have to do some research on or talk to attorneys about, because I don't want to run afoul of SB 54.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, he's done a lot of violation of SB 54.
Thank you, Cecilia. Okay. Any other questions? This has been very good and very informative. And we are recording this. We can post it on our Facebook page. Any of you can post it wherever you like. I'll be sending it out also to our emails, the link to it as well. So we try to get out, it's all about information, communication, getting that information out for everybody. So I thank you. I thank you very much. I have to say, I like this term, diversity of thought. I like that term. It just sparks something in me. That's It's really important, isn't it? Inclusive perspectives. So,
Yeah.
yeah, thank you very much for all of that. Do you have any last words or comments?
No, just thank you for the time and opportunity to meet and present to you all. And I hope you all have a very good 3-day weekend. And thank you for the time and opportunity. If you want to reach out, I've put my website in there, social media. You can follow me on social media, on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And we're really out there saturating everything as much as possible, because as Madeline said, the election is definitely coming up really quick. And if you want to work or volunteer individually, by all means, sign up, and be happy to have you. I'm here for everybody. I want to represent and be out there for everyone, not just a small pocket of people. That's not who I am, and that's not why I got into law enforcement. So I really want to embody that, and I hope to be able to do that for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming to us from your mobile office there.
Very correct. You're right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Okay, thanks. Okay, well, this is a time for us to do our networking, our sharing of announcements. If anybody has any announcements from their organizations or any other news you want to share, please raise your hand and I will go. I see everybody. So yeah, we'll start with Yenny.
Hello, everyone. Hola. Just want to give an announcement. We are starting at the Latina Center. We have opening enrollment for our Women's Health and Leadership program that is hosted in Spanish or Spanish-speaking women between the ages of 18 and 70. Long time ago, my organizing career took off in the Latina Center with this Women's Health and Leadership program. And there's many women in our county and the state that have benefited from coming into the Latina Center and learning about the civic affairs of our local government and county. So please, if you know any women that are Latinas, that are Spanish speakers that would like to join, we'd love to have them for the new cohort for the Mujer Salud y Liderazgo. So I'll be sharing the flyer with you all, Consuelo, later. And then we also have our program for micro enterprises. We have a basic Excel training for Spanish speakers if they're interested, if they have a business and they need to learn how to use Excel for their business. We're welcome to have them. We'd love to teach them and show them and get them connected with services that will help their entrepreneur journey take off. So yeah, I think that's it for today. Oh, and aside from my work at the Latina Center, I'm also a community organizer, and I love the work of Urban Till. Today, if you have time, 3 to 5, we're having a community action day at the North Richmond Farm. I say we because I feel like I'm part of Urban Till. But you know, they're threatening our farm with taking away, you know, developers trying to build this more warehouses that we don't need, that will potentially take away, you know, more than 4 hours of shade for the food we're growing for our community. So if you have time today, it's an in-person event. We really want to make noise and want to make sure that people know that we're there to protect our land and the land that feeds our community right now. So please come out at the North Richmond Farm. Oh gosh, I don't have the address, but it's on Brookside and Dulce help. Anyways, North Richmond Farm, Google it. If you have time, come out and support our community because we definitely need everyone. So thank you.
And I can put the flyer in the chat too, Jenny. If
and thank you, Kristen.
Chat. There you go. That's great. Thank you. Yeah. No, I really, or something about Urban Tills. We need to invite them to come and talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're great. They're just so great. Okay, Madeline, you have some announcements?
I just wanted to announce that the League of Women Voters of West Contra Costa County and Diablo Valley did an event yesterday about Measure X, and that is going to be published on the library website. So it was very interesting, and it really does give you a background on how the Measure X funding is being spent. And Supervisor Mitchoff was there along with the Mariana Moore, who was the head of the chair of the Measure X Citizens Advisory Board. And tomorrow there is a big all-day event called Solving for Housing that's being done by the League of Women Voters Bay Area. And our Assemblymember Wicks will be there. Senator Cortese from the South Bay will be there, and a number of other electeds, as well as other folks who will talk about, and Richmond City Council member Melvin Willis is going to be the keynote to talk about all issues of housing, the social issues, the environmental issues, as well as the economic issues. And there's an organization called Yes in My Backyard, YIMBY. Their director will also be there speaking on a panel. So it's an all-day event, but I also will post the link to it in the Concilio Facebook page. And once it's done, I will post the link to the recording on Concilio too.
Great. Thank you so much. Good events to know about. Okay, next, Magdalena. Yes.
Hi, yeah. I also just wanted to announce that our office is hosting a town hall on voting in Contra Costa that's happening today at 12. And we will be featuring, I don't know why I'm spacing on her name, the county election clerk, Deborah, can't remember her last name, I'm sorry. But yeah, the county clerk will be present if you have any questions for her. So we will be taking questions, and I can add the link on the chat today at 12.
Great. Yes, please do add that there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other announcements or comments or anything? You can raise your hand or just speak up.
Consuelo, how is the Concilio Latino listed under Facebook? What name is it under?
Let me see. I have it here. It's at WCC or WC Concilio Latino, one word. At WC, because that's West County, Concilio Latino.
Thank you.
Should be there. Yeah. Good. Thank you for asking. And it's on the agendas, so too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it should be. That's where I read it from. So, okay. Any other questions, comments, suggestions? I'm just really happy. This was a wonderful meeting today, and let's just pass it on. This is really important information, and I'm so glad we're recording these, and we're going to have an archive of all of these resources. So this is great, and we're a little bit early. Any last thoughts before we close? Oh. All right. Okay, so you can unmute and I'll say hi or bye to everybody. How about that? Bye.
So is the recording stopped?
Have a great weekend, everyone.
I will stop the recording.
Okay.
Stop the recording.
Adios.